This past week, Pam Bondi gave testimony during a Justice Department Oversight Committee hearing, and she really gave some just totally unhinged arguments, at one point even making the case that we shouldn't be talking about Jeffrey Epstein because the stock market's doing so well. But I wanted to take a second and address some of her attacks against Thomas Massie and kind of defend those positions. So here she is.
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times.
I already told you that. This is where he's listed as a co-conspirator.
Can I finish my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm going to answer this question.
Reclaiming my time. Mr. Chairman.
This is how this works.
Can I have my time back? Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from Kentucky.
All right, I'm reclaiming my time.
Can I give my answer?
So I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman, may I give my answer on that? It's a political joke, and I need to give my answer on that.
We'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his next question.
It's my time.
Within 40 minutes, you asked me a question. Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
There was one redaction out
where
of
he's
over
listed as a co-conspirator.
And we invited you in. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get, you're a failed politician. You need to get on these matters.
Mr. Chairman, please restore his time. And
did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I am reclaiming my time. I'm glad you're asking about Merrick Garland.
You don't get to reclaim
because
time
this is
when you don't,
bigger than Watergate.
When I don't answer a question
this
the way
goes
you want.
over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And that's
now,
where the
I want to know at what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wexner was not a co-conspirator? Because our Epstein Files Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision about whether to prosecute him or not, and it's not in the files, and it's not in the files for any of these other men.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
May she answer?
And he's a hypocrite because he voted against the ban that we were talking about on deep fake AI porn. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
So you see, it started off, she was defending the facts that Les Wexner's name was only redacted that one time. But the thing is, the one time that it was redacted was the part where it was mentioning that he was a co-conspirator with Epstein for trafficking women. And that's the problem, is that, yes, it's in there 4,000. There's a lot of people that are mentioned in there, but when it's the actual incriminating part, that's the part that was redacted. She accuses Thomas Massie of having Trump derangement syndrome, and let's all acknowledge Trump derangement syndrome is real. When you have these far-left lunatics that literally blame everything on Trump, they're the ones at the No Kings rallies and the protesters up in Minneapolis. They literally blame everything on Trump. They will not accept anything wrong that the Democrats do. You know, the Biden administration, no matter how big a failure it was, they'll defend that, but they'll blame everything on Trump. But Trump derangement syndrome goes both ways. And when you see people on the right that are defending the pressure that's come to not release the Epstein files, and when you see people that defend all of the foreign intervention and continue to support Trump, even though he's increasing the deficits and blowing up the budget, the people that defend that don't want to hold Trump accountable, that's Trump derangement syndrome on the right. Bondi wants to know why Thomas Massie didn't grill Merrick Garland about this, because we knew that the Biden administration was already trying to gaslight us and say that the Epstein files were a hoax. They weren't campaigning on it. Donald Trump talked about this during the campaign. He told Fox and Friends in the Morning that he would release the Epstein files.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
You had Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, all these other, right-wing political people within the podcast sphere and in the media that were really pushing to bring out the Epstein files, and Trump went along with that. That's why the pressure is coming on now. It's Biden and them. We knew we weren't going to get that. Trump, people voted for Trump some people because they wanted these Epstein files released. And Trump said that he was going to deliver on that. And then Pam Bondi wraps up her attack talking about Thomas Massie voting against the Take It Down Act, which has already been passed. That was like a year ago. And he voted against it. And it was because there were concerns of restrictions of the First Amendment. It had nothing to do with him being against, deep fake AI porn, as Pam Bondi likes to represent it. Massie even said when he was questioned about this that he was not defending revenge porn. He was not defending non-consensual, intimate visual depictions. He says that he just thought that the legislation was ripe for abuse with unintended consequences, as many bills typically are. And this is typical, political behavior. They'll have a bill that will, let's say it's called, support the veterans bill. And it's all about how they're going to provide all this care and benefits for any veteran that serves. So if you vote against that, well, then you're against the veterans. Well, deep inside that bill, there's going to be some type of foreign aid. It'll be $1 billion to a foreign country. And let's say a representative doesn't want to give that foreign aid to that country, so they vote against that bill. Then the other politicians will come out and say, oh, look, he voted against the veterans. This guy hates veterans. And no, he doesn't hate veterans. He doesn't want to give that $1 billion of foreign aid. And that's exactly what they do. Because one of the biggest concerns with the Take It Down Act was that it was going to give compliance, basically regulatory authority, to the Federal Trade Commission, a body of political appointees that can be incredibly influenced, and that was going to be who was going to be able to control it. So there was a whole lot of freedom, civil liberties groups and First Amendment advocates, and there were a lot of people that didn't support this act. So the fact that Thomas Massie even had the courage to vote against this because he's a principled representative, that says a lot about Thomas Massie. Pam Bondi just completely went off the deep end this week, and she looked absolutely horrible during these hearings. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?